What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video we have Chris here, who has a grown out mullet. His hair is super thick, as you can tell in this video, and we're just going to tighten this up. So for the first half of the cut, we're going to be using the FX3 on all of the left side of his cut, and we're going to put it against the Lithium FX Plus Clipper on the entire right side of his hair. We're going to start with the FX3, taking this hair down. I'm using, I believe, a 1.5 guard to remove the excess bulk. I've already pre-cut the rest of the hair with scissors prior to this point, but we're gonna use this now on dry hair. The rest of his hair looks a little damp, but in this area here that I'm working on, I blow dried this really quickly just to keep it more on the dry side. This tool also has serrated blades, which makes it really good for clipper over comb. The ability for it to pick up hair and cut is amazing on this tool. So when I need something that's going to cut quick guidelines or any clipper over comb work, this is usually the tool that I would go to. FX3 also has its own set of guards, so it's very different from your premium and your standard guards. Those fit everything else. FX3 is kind of its own thing, has a different blade, has different guards. So typically on my station that I use 3 from the FX3 set and then 3 from my premium guard set. I don't use the whole thing. I use everything up to about a 1.5, 2 on a regular daily basis. So everything else beyond that, I put away in my drawer. In this section here, I am pretty much outlining the cut. This is the FX3 Trimmer. I have a gold blade on it. This comes from the red set. If you guys remember that set at all, it's one of my sharpest blades that I have. So I've been using it and passing it on. Typically what I like to do, and this is just preference and it changes over time depending on what I'm doing, but I'm gonna outline my section first. And sometimes when I'm doing tapers, it just gives me a more organized canvas to look at. So I'm not doing a hard guideline here. I'm gonna come back to it again once I finish the section. But in the beginning, I like to make sure I clean it out and then go from there. So I'm gonna start with my first guideline here. You saw the way I switched it upside down. You have to remember my blades are extremely sharp, so I don't want it to run on the skin. I'm also using my UV single foil shaver to remove that line all the way down flush to the cheek, making the haircut last a few days extra. Now I have my FX3 all the way open. I set that guideline. As you can tell, it created a guideline extremely quick. On this type of clipper, you have a shorter lever. In comparison to the lithium, once we get to that side, that has a longer stretch lever. So with the shorter stretch levers, you have to be a little bit more accurate, which is why this tool does take some time to get used to. Line by line, you can see how clean it does. So I create my open guard first, and then I work my way back down before I move on. So now we're gonna pop onto our next guard and follow the exact same steps. When it comes to barbing, you're working in a typewriter motion. You're gonna go one line at a time and try to keep it the most consistent possible so that blend connects really well. I have my 0.5 guard. I'm creating that new guide zone. And if you can see, I'm working using just the edges of my tool. I'm trying to connect this right into the area above that, which is gonna be my 1.5 area. Slowly but surely, I make that new guide and then I work my way back down into the previous. So clipper over comb for me in this section here, you can tell that I'm using that comb to really just pull the hair out from the scalp. I'm not necessarily cutting all the hair off that's coming off that comb. It's just a way for me to pull everything out so I know exactly where to pinpoint where I'm cutting. And yes, I still have a guard on my clipper, and that's just because the area before the section that I'm on right now, I was already using that guard. So adding the comb on top of that just helps me connect it a little bit more seamlessly. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in and redefine that edge up that I did to begin with. This is when I'm gonna go back in and make sure it's a really hard line and a nice clean edge before I get to the finish. I now have my clipper all the way open, no guard, and this is where I'm refining. I'm really tilting that clipper, cutting on the corner so that I can clean up anything that I left behind. Now with this tool, it's a lot harder because again, you have a shorter amount of space to work with when it comes to the blend. And with a serrated blade, it's a lot sharper. So you have to be really careful not to go too high with it. Again, I'm gonna do the same thing with the trimmer, cutting on just the corners. Anything else that's left behind from the foil shaver, I wanna be able to tackle that. Now we're gonna get into the other side using the Lithium FX Plus Clipper. I'm gonna remove the bulk just like I did on the other side, and we're gonna use a 1.5 to begin with. This Lithium FX Clipper is the 3rd edition of this tool. It's come a long way and it has a lot of great features in this new one. You have a 2-hour runtime, you have 6,800 RPM speed, and also my favorite thing about this is that it's the lightest one in our entire setup, and it's the most affordable. So it's something that I always recommend to people if they are looking for something that's easier to use when you're fading. The extended lever on this is what makes it special. You have a 4.3 millimeter stretch in comparison to the FX3, you have a 2.0 millimeter stretch. Huge difference, it's almost doubled. Think of it this way, this tool can pretty much go almost to a 1.5 guard if you use it properly. I'm gonna use also the matching Lithium FX Trimmer. I love this because it's actually one of the most comfortable ones I use. It comes with a standard blade. If this is the one that you go with, you probably won't need anything else because this blade pretty much does it all. Great for removing bulk and also great for edge ups. So I'm gonna start again the same way that I did the other side, do a pre-line so I have a nice clean section to work with, taking it step by step, just using those edges. Think of it like a pencil tip, and I'm gonna create that nice C-scoop. Now I'm gonna start with my first guideline, soft guideline in, turn my trimmer upside down. Again, these blades are sharp, so I don't want it to run on the skin. I'm gonna turn it upside down just for an easier comfort. I got my UV single foil shaver that I'm using on the other side as well to remove all that stubble and get it flush to the skin. Now we got our lithiums with no guard all the way open, creating that first guideline. As you can see there where it stops, that's pretty much telling me don't go beyond that point. And as I work underneath it, I'm gonna close my lever notches down one at a time, again, following in a typewriter type of motion. And I wanna blend that out completely before I move on into my next zone. Little by little, you can see me closing my lever closer and closer to the bottom. And as I move it to the bottom, it should connect right into my trimmer line that I created before this. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with my 0.5 guard, all the way open first, creating my new guide zone. Now you can kind of see that hard line area right there. And as I get to that place, that's telling me again, don't go beyond this point, and I'm gonna blend everything right back down again. And now if you look at it from the side, this is kind of the angle that I'm going with. It's kind of a nice rocking motion. I keep full contact towards the bottom where I start, but as I move up, I come off the head because I don't want to create a new line of demarcation. I want to make it a nice and easy transition for the next guide zone to take place. Now I'm going to drop that guard down to a 0.5, doing the exact same thing, working all the way back down again, refining anything that I missed. Final cleanup is using my trimmer, cutting on the side, making sure I get any stubble that's standing out. Sometimes when you're working on thick hair like this, one stubble can make the blend look inconsistent. So being able to identify those areas by having a zero gap trimmer is going to make this process a whole lot easier. Zero gapping your tools is optional. This is not something you always have to do. This is just something that makes it a little bit easier of a process if you are planning on doing skin tapers and skin fades. Being able to gap your tools just allow them to work the way that it should and work closer to the scalp, which allows you to really maximize the tool that you purchased. Now with my last final step of refining, I'm gonna use my half guard, use the corner cutting technique, and I'm gonna go back in and refine this before I finish this off. I'm switching the lever every time I stop, going either back up or down. Now I'm gonna go back in with my clipper with no guard, refining any of those edges right below that section. And then finally, one last pass using my trimmer, bringing all the hair down. And a cool little technique I'm showing you right here is instead of folding the ear, especially on the top, is if you push down, it stretches out the ear to allow you to really see that C-scoop right above the ear. Now this hairstyle is fairly easy to maintain, especially for my client here. He wants something that's super quick and easy. I gave him some statement powder to play with that's gonna bring that texture out, especially with hair like his being so dense. This is gonna create that separation and texture that he was looking for. And there you have it on the left side. You have your FX3 set, cleaning up his left taper, and then moving this onto the right side of his haircut, we use the Lithium FX Clipper. Both sides have their own special features. Depending on the user, you might like one or the other. But again, I hope this tutorial kind of gave you an insight on how some of it works. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one.